any other thing. In terms of education, however, in the case of all that, the immigrant community that we serve, value education, right? Over 45%, or more have a college or a graduate degree. However, that does not necessarily translate into their income. When we talk about low income, very low income, or extremely low income families, sometimes we'll find out that people with a high qualified degrees, like we are with immigrants, can be also in that case. Me myself speaking, I have a degree, a PhD from Untitled University. I will come in here, but I've also experienced what it means to have a PhD degree in your hands as an immigrant, and then looking and say, wait a minute, where's the gap in there? Before, of course, what they need comes place, and this is what what we can also to offer immigrants how we can vouch for opportunity. So that's my way of saying that we're standing here with this experience of what the immigrants community can go through, experiencing what the dream is, but also facing what the difficulties can be. Very quickly to end on that, on my portion, I want to talk about the Delaware County Immigrants Coalition that we formed. COVID-19 came, so all of us were by surprise. Our services that we offer, whether it is the Coalition of African Communities, Multicultural, Central Apoyo, and any other coalition, we are all caught by surprise. What happened is that we didn't have the equipment or the capacity to deliver services remotely, especially that we serve a community that are local one-on-one, and the people now to rely on them. So we came together and thought about, hey, 20 minutes. This may be a unique opportunity for us to come together and make sure that whatever is being decided in Hyderabad, in Washington, in Philadelphia, or even here across the streets in Upper Delhi, by the authorities, how do we make sure that whatever they are thinking of can come closer to the people, and that's where we come in. We formed that Delaware County Immigrant Coalition with over 60 different organizations. We put the emphasis on how we build capacity. How do we uplift with the leaders that we have, but mostly also, how do we make sure that as leaders of these community-based organizations and these immigrant serving organizations, we can think about the wellness, not just for the communities that we serve, but for our sector.
Yeah.
So what we did, food distribution. We work with Upper Delhi, Delaware County, I would say, even with Philadelphia, in terms of promoting the rental assistance program for us. And we have registered and enrolled so many people to make sure that we come back to homelessness. For Africa, for instance, one of the things that we have done, we even a little bit of money that we receive, is to make sure that some people who, because of not working and not COVID, will no longer pay for their utility bills, how to be back for them. And this is how the coalition was created and continues to do the work, and we are happy that this is standing in it.
Dr. Eric, where are you from? Your country of origin?
I'm from Cote d'Ivoire, a great nation close to
We're following our brigade to the Multicultural Services Center. This is also called the Palava Convening, which is which Portia can tell you more about. Portia Camera is the director of the Multicultural Services Center, and she's here with Dr. Eric Eddy from AFRICOM, Lrtn from Centro de Apoyo Comunitario, and I'm going to leave it to them to introduce the compatriots who are here with them today. Thank you so much.
Francis has already said good morning. So I'm Portia Kamara. I'm the director for the Multicultural Community Family Services. I am from Liberia, West Africa. My native tongue is Bar. When we say good morning, we say Yabune! So it's such an honor. We are very pressed for time. Francis said this is tight, so we're going to honor Francis' words and we're going to make this tight. So every second I go outside of that script, I'm in trouble. It's an honor to have all of you here to tour our beautiful Upper Georgia where the world meets in one place and to see all the wonderful things and meet members of the Delaware County Immigrant Community and hear about our work. So today is not about any individual immigrant organization. This is about our collaboration, our collaborative. I want to tell you a little bit about the immigrant community. Francis has already introduced everyone. Behind me are members of our staff. Multicultural has a very diverse staff from India to Liberia and Korea, you name it. And we are so honored again. So without further ado, I want to just give you a little bit information about the immigrant community here. We are pretending that you know nothing about the diverse community that is Upper Darby. What about this community that is so special? This community is special in terms of its diversity because it represents over 25% of foreign-born individuals that live and reside in their little county. It is a community that cannot be boxed because it is a community that speaks many languages. Sometimes people refer to them as dialects. But those are languages where that represent their first language, and so English becomes the second, French becomes the second, Arabic becomes the second because of the local languages. This Upper Darby that you are visiting today is also a community that has over 70 languages that are spoken in our schools. Imagine that. In our schools alone, over 70 languages. In addition to that, we will also tell you that some communities, populations make up a huge number of the immigrants that are here. From the Vietnamese to the Liberians to people from Honduras, Guatemala, Ecuador, to India. We see a member of our staff representing India. We are here, and as immigrants, though diverse, though cannot be boxed, we represent a growing contributor to the economies, not just of Upper Darby, but to Delaware County. Our immigrant community also come not only from different countries, but it represents many legal statuses, from naturalized citizens to green card holders to asylum, refugees, DACA individuals, to those who are on DED, known as deferred, Eric, I just blanked out right here. Deferred
for childhood arrival.
Yes, that's DACA, deferred action for childhood arrival, and temporary protective status, as well as DED. Eric, please go quick and say what DED is right now.
Deferred enforcement departure.
Deferred enforcement departure. There are also visitors that come, and they come through family resettlement programs, through family members filing for them, through winning the diversity lottery, many pathways to citizenship. But in that mix, we also have many of our immigrant brothers and sisters that are also undocumented. And oftentimes, they are the ones walking in the shadows that we don't see, and we just want to share that as well. We also want to share that our community, as unique as it is one that worked very hard. It is one that represents, as I said, many countries, and I believe 6 continents outside of Australia. Imagine that right here in Upper Darby. And so we said thank you for coming again. This conversation is going to continue on. We see a presentation with Layla telling us more about this unique, rich diversity, people, languages, cultures that represent our community known as Upper Darby. Layla? Oh, Dr. Aaron A.
Thank you much. You covered so much of what we know of this community. I just want to touch upon again, the immigration status, per household. As you may know, we are also dealing with the community. You may enter a house where Ms. Portia mentioned you have undocumented folks, but undocumented folks are we the children who are U.S. citizens by way of being born in this country. And of course, these immigrant families have then in the school system, especially in the government system. By way of their revenues, of course, very few of them will have the opportunity to settle fees to those parochial or private schools, which means that the public school system is the line of defense for this family. Reason why in the work that we do, we work with the school district to make sure that
Just a quick add, it was founded in 2020.
I would just go ahead.
Four complex initiatives together from the census to COVID-19 to rental assistance, three primary critical issues and food insecurity. Thank you. Most of them supported by some of you. It is very good. Thank you. Leila, take us home, please.
I want to make sure that we're leaving. If you can't hear me, I tend to speak quietly, so just stick your hand up my aisle. Yeah, it's not your children unless you're my children. So, as my colleagues referred to, we have taken on 4 major initiatives, and I want to talk about. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about some of the lessons that we learned, because we have all been working independently as small organizations, but when we came together, I'm going to put this right in front of my face, I'm getting some reminders. When we came together, what we started to realize is there's some real underdeveloped capital in the community. And that capital comes in the form of small, grassroots organizations that maybe they're not formed as 501c3s, right? They don't have operating budgets. They don't have a lot of the infrastructure that some of the bigger organizations, and that is true of Centro. Thank you, Michiko, for walking me through that. I appreciate you. But we came together to try to support one another in that process, and there was a lot of information exchange. And through that, what we started to find too was there was also community exchange. We could call each other. We had food delivery issues where there were members of the community that did not want to reach out to Africa or MCFS for help because they knew everybody. But they could call me. Vice versa, I could send my community down here. And it became a real sharing of resources and exchange that was really, really critical. But we also really aimed to develop those smaller organizations, those smaller groups, and arm them as best we could with the resources they needed to start to figure out, hey, do we want to formalize this? How do we want to structure this? How do we do these things? And, everyone's making different decisions, but we found out a few key elements. One is the pre-existing relationship with the immigrant community is critical. It has been virtually impossible for us to impose ourselves on any community. If I walked in to a Liberian community organization tomorrow and said, I have a service, right? It's not going to have the same impact as folks knowing, hey, you are part of this community, we're going to work together. So those pre-existing relationships are what allowed us to move forward. So when everything shut down and we got the phone calls from our community, we were in a position to continue doing the work because we had that relationship. The timeline of services and the timeline of interventions is different in immigrant communities. It takes longer. And this is something that we really wanted to highlight because oftentimes, right, we say, okay, we'll do this in 6 months, or we'll do this in a year. At the end of 6 months, people are calling us, hey, we want to do, whatever the services that you're offering, we want it now. And it's like, no, but we started 5 months ago. It takes longer to implement services. It takes longer to offer these in the immigrant community. And it's really, really critical that those of us who are working in the community have the flexibility to call up and say, okay, so now I have this other thing, or this has changed, because there's no roadmap. One of the other things that we found is a lot of the information that we have on who the immigrant community is inaccurate. Just putting it bluntly, right? And so we had this issue recently. We looked at the census data. Ms. Kamara kindly pulled a lot of data together, and I looked at it and I said, there's actually not a huge Mexican community. I mean, there are definitely Mexicans in Upper Darby, but it's not the largest community. But the census data says it is. But I assure you that it's not, right? It's the Guatemalan and Honduran community and the Ecuadorian community are really the largest in this area. So what we know as a grassroots organization sometimes differs from what's documented. The school district, I think, does do a pretty good job of knowing where folks are from because it happens. But when we start to look at who folks are and how we're categorizing things, let's think about what are we missing? You know, what aren't we being told? Because of the way these questionnaires and the way the information is collected is not always accurate or reflective, I guess, of what the community is really comprised of. Another thing that we found is that collective work is critical. And for me, it was a life lesson, you know, when I had to close my mouth, which I'm actually not very good at doing. I talk a lot, right? And my colleagues were like, you just sit there and you listen. And the power that came out of making that space for folks who are not often engaged in the conversation was remarkable. The information, the ideas, the power of those conversations, I think has really, really shaped this collective into something very meaningful. And for me, as an organization director, I now know who I can go to and get support from. If I'm struggling with thing one, I will go to Dr. Eddie. If I'm struggling with another thing, I will go to Ms. Tamara. And this is how we operate, and it's been absolutely critical. The ability to work across communities has allowed us to get to communities that you can't find. One of the things that's distinctive about Upper Darby is how many hidden families there are. And I say this as someone who goes into households, and my colleagues will probably agree with me. You go into a household, and you may see the 4 people that are on the list. You don't know who's subletting. You know, there are a lot of multi-generational, multi-family households. People hide within the community because they need to, right? They need to not, because being undocumented in this country is extremely difficult. And it has allowed them to survive economically in a way that is not possible in other places. But to get to those folks, to get to those communities, is very, very difficult. One example, we have a huge Guatemalan population here in Upper Darby. But not everyone can speak Spanish, right? There are at least 4 major language groups from Guatemala that are represented. How you get to those folks, how you talk to those folks, how you find where they live, and offer things to them, we need each other to be able to do that. It's not, we can't just hang a sign. It's just not possible. I'm getting the hurry up. Yes, I do appreciate it. So, we appreciate each other. Thank you. So, the other thing is I want to highlight, we tend to think about the immigrant community as a difficult community to access. But I really want to talk about the fact that it's a community that comes to you with an amazing amount of strength and power. Just the economic power alone is tremendous. So I challenge, I don't know if part of the tour is walking up Garrett Road at all. Right. Okay. So if you just take Garrett Road, you will see any amount of different stores, restaurants, right? And actually tomorrow, tomorrow's the international, we have a table, so I should know this, is the International Festival. You will see people represented from all over the world. That is an economic driver, and please don't, underestimate that power. But folks are also looking out for each other. I could give you many, many examples. During COVID, unfortunately, we lost many people in the immigrant community. And by the time I got the call, you know, so-and-so passed away, the community had already gathered all the money needed to send the remains back. I mean, within 48 hours. The power, the collective power of the community is tremendous. So we have discovered that there are many best practices that are critical to take into account in individual efforts. So one of those is the flower huts, which is something that I've learned about through this process, right? I know a lot about how folks in the Latinx community lend money to one another. That's also really critical to understand. And so our ability to converse and centralize this knowledge has been extremely helpful. But the needs of the community are different, and there is a lot of power in the community, but how we capitalize on that, how we help people access what they need, looks different. And one perfect example is we have, and Dr. Eddie talked about it, we have tons of people who are coming with graduate degrees, nursing degrees. I know probably at least 15 physicians from Venezuela who cannot practice. How do we harness that? How do we help these folks who are such a driver, right? And how do we engage them in a way that helps them to move forward, right? And so it's critical that we figure out where those barriers are, where those doors are, and then we start to open them. So with that, I'm going to wrap up because we want to have time for questions.
Mr. Kaplan is going to be the center of you with the microphone. We want to give as much time for questions. Mr. Daniel Lender, a member of the DCIC representing Rising Hope for Change, is joining us. You heard Linda talk about not only the lessons learned, but what are the gaps, what are the barriers, what are the strengths of the diverse immigrant community here. We hope that we have given you some information that you can take with you. We do have, that we will be giving out at the end, a data snapshot. This was done several years ago by the Denver Valley Radio Planning Commission, sort of updated. Focus on Upper Derby. 3 communities with high numbers of foreign-born residents. So you can see Upper Derby highlighted. We want you to take this home with you. As Layla said, it's not 100% correct. You look at this, it says we have a 19.5% foreign-born. We're actually 25% or more. It says also that Mexico is one of the leading countries of immigrants in Upper Derby. What is missing is immigrants from Guatemala and immigrants also from Honduras. And so we certainly hope that you enjoy it. In reading it, this is also quickly a 2-pager that you can take with you. I was talking to him. We knew if we had given it to you, you wouldn't even pay any attention. We kept it. All right, thank you again for your time and listening to us. And Mr. Kaplan, let's go Palawaha style right now. Palawaha conversation, if we may.
Thank you, Ms. Kay.
right.
If anybody would like to share your thoughts, what you know about Upper Darby, what you thought you knew about Upper Darby, here's a great opportunity.
Mr. Kaplan, may I interrupt for 1
Yes,
second?
please.
I would not be a Liberian if I did not do this. In this space is our Honorable Mayor, Barbara Ann Kiefer, and I want to introduce her. Madam Mayor. Ms. Reggiani.
We have plenty of time for conversation, so.
And I will just highlight that if you have a question, all of your colleagues probably have it too. So please do not be shy.
Yes, we encourage that.
I don't think that I can talk loud enough. My question is on the food that you get. Are you able to customize it to the different communities because they get food that they are comfortable and?
It has been a challenge, and it was one of our discoveries during COVID. We found that Many of our communities were receiving shared food and fed abundance food, and they were putting it in the trash because that's not what they eat at home. And I think multicultural, along with all partner organizations here, the key that lead advocacy voice for cultural specific food, cultural appropriate foods. So it is still a challenge. There are times we have it through opportunities, and there are times we don't have it. We have a pantry. I know you do not have the time, but if there is a minute or two left, Multicultural will invite you to our Calabash pantry, and you can see some of the foods that we give out. But no, it remains a challenge, and it is a huge need in the immigrant community. Thank you.
Another way we think about as an African, for instance, is to have our food vouchers that you know. It is the direct cash assistance, so with funding from the Lrtn Foundation or other funders who were able to let the communities know what is discussed with cash assistance. Also, some of the form of shop rights or store voucher to purchase, and even sometimes also go to the African community stores, for instance, in the community store purchase.
Asian stores.
It has been very, very, very critical because you know what? That's true. We have the food boxes from all these organizations, but again, it's going to get them and they say, okay, this is not just to eat. In the midst of the COVID pandemic, it was another huge thing. So even on some sites where some organizations decided to provide food, let's take the example even of Philadelphia, what we found out, people were not doing it. So these are other ways we do something.
Because food is not only physical in our community, food is very cultural. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Krista Sang from Aqua. I'm glad you mentioned food as a Cambodian. When I see nothing but top ramen in a food shelf, that's really sad. So that's really great. My question is about what has been done, whether it's consciously or just it was in place. Like, what was the structure that allowed immigrants to thrive in Upper Darby, and what is it that other places could look to do in a positive way to welcome more diversity?
Excellent question. I can speak. All right. Let me know if you can't hear me. I think the schools are really a draw for many communities. What I think crosses a lot of the communities that I deal with, anyway, are people really value education. And so word is out that Upper Darby schools are accessible and they do a good job. And they really do a wonderful job. The other thing is the cost of living is a little bit more accessible than Philadelphia, but there's a huge, there are opportunities for work that are quite close. And then I think the last one is most of our communities go where they know people. And so once you have some folks, then they bring friends, community members, because most of my work at least, is bringing, I get phone calls saying, my cousin just arrived, my cousin's wife just arrived, right? And so folks are just sort of coming where they know, and this has been a safe and accessible community.
Adding to that, here in America, we learn very quickly it is all about the individual. Where immigrants come from, it is about relationships. It is us, not I, me, myself. Right? So our community, and I speak collectively, have very strong community networks. And those networks will support one another. Whether it is through word of mouth or sharing a room. As Linda said, you see 4 people here, there may be 5 more, maybe 10 more. Even if they have to sleep on the floor until they find that job to buy their own, rent their room or their house. So again, it's about relationships, it's about community, it's about wholeness, it's about togetherness. And I think those ingredients in addition to what Lena has said, have really contributed to our community, the immigrant community, thriving within Delaware County. Not only just with the schools, but even with houses where immigrants make up about 55% of home ownership in Upper Derby Township. It is truly amazing.
Okay, can you talk a little bit more, I'll try to speak loud, about like education? It seems like education, if you're in a school, in a community where there's 70 different languages, how does it get done? Do you provide any services that help the educators, or do they have special techniques? I mean, we're from a school district that's completely English, you know. They struggle with any language other than English. So I'm just curious if you know what the magic is to assimilate all that and you know, educate.
Okay, I think one of the ways that we've been doing that is because, like everyone here has said, it's a community and relationship where we go to church, churches, places of worship. It's a great place that we also share information. And once someone knew how they have been helped, they share with the next person in the fellowship. For example, as a pastor, when this information comes on text, we form it in our announcement in the church. And this is now circulating among everyone. You can pass that on. You can get help this way, you can help that this way. So church has played a very key role, even with the food, like church has played a very key role in passing information, including the education.
Speak on the education portion. Families need to be closer to school. The children need to educate. Language can be a barrier. What we have work with school districts to do is to have a community of language specialists that play the liaison with the families, for instance. Encouraging also families to be present. If you take the African communities, you know, for most part, you're looking at self-employed women who are in a big business. The philosophy is that once the kids leave the home to go to school, that's your responsibility. Take care of them over there. That's why, knowledge-wise, when they come home, that's my job. Don't call me every single day, you know, to go over there. What are you doing? These kinds of things are what you know will carry with over here. So what we have to work to close with, the gap that we are trying to close is how do we get the parents to interest in Philadelphia, for instance, Philadelphia side, and we did that also with Upper Darby. Philadelphia has a school district has a new superintendent. We got involved in the new superintendent search in such a way that the voices of the African community of the immigrant community can also be on the table. And once the new superintendent was hired, during his initial tour, we made sure that we have a session also with him to express those kinds of needs. That burn in on language access, not only for the kids, because some of them do come, but we got those language barriers. How many language specialists, for instance, you have in each school, for instance, to help those kids? And to end of that, my own daughter was born here, but she was growing here before coming back, 4 years ago. In her high school when she went, the thing was, hey, who is in there to help her, better, so that she gets acquainted with the language. So it's mostly, I would say, the language barrier. And today again, we have another layer which is digital equity, which has become a big thing for me particularly, because the internet is a human right. So that's how I see it.
Thank you. Just quickly, Upper Derby School District still has a long way to go, but in addressing language access, in addressing language competency. But we also want to acknowledge how far we have come. We also want to acknowledge the supports that are provided on our time in supporting language services, such as English as a second language, ELL, English language learners. We are here to acknowledge the good that is being done, but also to say, as immigrant-led organizations serving a growing population and very diverse population in Upper Darby, there are still many gaps and barriers. And I know that together we'll continue to work through them to ensure that language access is made available to every immigrant child and adult who needs it in Upper Darby County.
Good morning, Nick Aponte, from a board member from the Foundation for Donors. Not only is education important, but the legal system. And would you please talk to us about how you educate so many people from so many different backgrounds and how you support the immigrant population in terms of their legal needs?
Well, this is actually one of my other hats in the community, so I will try to not go too long because I could have you here all day on this topic. But what I will say is everyone's legal status is highly individualized. And so I think the first thing that we need to do is start to assume that just because someone doesn't have a social security number, right, we're not going to put them in the box of illegal, or we're not going to put them in the box of sort of undocumented, because there's a lot of it. So what we do is a lot of education on where in the community you go to talk to attorneys about specific issues. I think that the legal issues that come up the most are obviously immigration, custody, and I will say, very sadly, I think the immigrant community is highly targeted to be sort of taken advantage of. So we have a lot of folks who have been sort of sold properties or evicted illegally. Those types of things come up a lot. Southeast Legal Aid does not serve the undocumented community because of the way that they're funded. So we have to rely on private attorneys, and we have the network, a pretty big network, and we know who they are that we can go to. We have attorneys who travel as far as coming from Bucks County to come and assist in this community. We have someone who comes, not from Bucks County, Berks County, my apologies, who specializes in housing issues and has done some Facebook Lives for the community and that kind of stuff. But a lot of it starts with education of the community. Just because you don't have a social security number doesn't mean you don't have rights, right? Just because you don't, English is not your primary language and you may not have fluency, doesn't mean you don't have rights. And so helping people to understand what those rights are is absolutely critical. And then the next step is connecting them to this very large network. I don't know if you guys have anything.
One of those large networks would be the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Just this past Saturday, right here in this very space where you are sitting, also hosted Citizenship Day 2022, where lawyers from all over our area, Greater Philadelphia, converge here, providing free services to many immigrants who have had their green cards anywhere from 3 years to 5 years. 3 years if they're a U.S. citizen, or 5 years if not, helping them to apply for citizenship, submitting the paperwork without charging them a dime. If they had to go to an attorney for that, you would be looking at least $2,000. And many of our nonprofit immigrant organizations also provide similar support at a very minimum level, or support for assisted at a very basic level with application supports and other immigrant needs that people have as they seek to not just regularize their status, but also to bring family members over for employment. Something.
There's one thing I want to stress on talking about legal assistance is the child welfare system, for instance. About 4 years ago, here the incidents of the family just arrived and just applied for the asylum. The same day they receive the voucher, go to do their fingerprint, the husband and the wife, how they manage, but the child that came with you failed. And this was all over the news, right? The two of them were incarcerated. How do we jump into this? Right? How do we provide that assistance? So it became an issue of immigration status, it became an issue of, which one is? Child endangerment, and all those things in there. So we jump in there to provide language assistance, but also finding them a lawyer to move on to them. The good thing, very quickly, about this is that we have to deal with the child welfare system. The community that responded quickly did not know that but they have the right to ask the hospital to take custody of the child. That child ended up in another family. We have to jump in and do that now. Thank God we were able to get them out. Their immigration status resolved. They are all green card holders now. They just purchased a house here in Abu Dhabi. And they had a new baby. They invited me to come to the child classing on the 16th. But the other good thing is that all charges were clear. But we were able to put together an idea of creating a child welfare, awareness program, so that we create a support group, African, multicultural, that we get really clear to get our families to understand what the child welfare system is, which is completely different from where they come from. So these are some of the ways we do it.
Can you talk a little bit about housing and access and issues? I know there's a lot going on there with the growth of the immigrant population. It would be great to just understand kind of your perspective about the primary big issues.
Hello everyone, this is Lrtn Kaur.
You just have to speak loud.
Okay. Hello everyone, this is Lrtn Kaur. I'm from India. I speak 4 languages. I have been working with MCFS for 13 years. 10 years. I started recording 13, sorry. So I'm an ESN, an Immigrant Support Program Coordinator, and currently I'm working on a DELCO Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I'm coordinating this initiative. And together we served hundreds of DELCO residents and we provided application assistance to them. So those people were facing hardship, financial hardship, they couldn't pay their rent or utilities. So we had them to file for those assistance, and they received from $3,000 to $10,000. Like they were eligible, some of them were eligible for 12 months, 5 months, and or some of them were eligible for 15 to 18 months. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Very quickly, housing is horrible. I'm just a bit blunt. Okay, it is horrible. Not just for families, but especially for seniors, especially immigrant seniors. I mean, everybody. I'm an advocate now for immigrants, so that's my spotlight. Okay, I've been in the social work field for over 34 years. When I entered in 1988, housing was an issue. It still is gotten worse. In as immigrant-led service organizations, we struggle. We don't know what to tell them. And that's what Layla said. You may see 4 sitting down, but you may have 10 in the background. They just are trying to look for a place to sleep until they can get on their feet. That is the immigrant story. But how long will that continue? We are finding more and more of our immigrants accessing shelters and sleeping on the floor because as strong as our support network is, my people, let me tell it to you the Liberian way, as we become more assimilated in this country, we are losing the strength of those networks, and the more services are needed, and the more our hope is that these organizations can be supported. Thank you. Francis has said, so we've heard.
Oh, no.
Thank you. It is 10:41. I know that Francis Francis wanted to start with precision by 10:40. What we did say at the beginning was that to my right are the restrooms, men and ladies and gentlemen. No numbers to enter, so if you have to, visit the restroom before you leave, please feel free to do so. Francis, we'll pass this on to you. I do have
Just to let you all know, there is also a restroom, there's a bathroom on the bus. So, and the bus is outside and it's waiting for us, but if people want to make a quick stop beforehand, and I think there's water as well.
Yeah, there's water. Mrs. Kerr said there's some Indian snacks also at the back. We really want to give a shout out to the Multicultural Community Family Services staff. Some of them you see here. And to the Nigerian Radio and Television Network, one of them said and to all of you for sitting so patiently and listening. To Sarah,
All of them.
the organizers, Francis, Sarah, all of you.
Yeah, I'm glad
You said thank you.
Sarah. Sarah McCullough is the chief of staff for Senator Tim Carney, who will be with us at lunch. And Sarah did work with me and Natalie Yoder from the Philanthropy Network and Rena LaRue to organize today. So you might want to take Rena aside.
Before you begin to leave, we talked to Sarah, we meeting the Delaware County Immigrant Coalition about having this convening about 2 years ago.
Yes.
2 years ago, and here we are. And she said, let me talk to the foundation of Delaware County. She talked to Francis, the conversation started. It was slow, but it got us here. From our hearts, we said thank you.
Yeah.
Francis,
We didn't feel comfortable getting on the bus. Now we feel comfortable. No,
Thank you, everybody.
let's go. Thank you so much, Portia. This was excellent.
Yeah, my mom's first
You're from Delaware.
Why don't you come and visit our family, because we do have, and maybe if you want to come in.
Good, how you doing? Come on, come on.
Are you our bus drivers?
Some trouble with us?
Went over there, but we got back there.
All right.
She said she
Yep, we gotta get it. All right, thank you for coming. Oh, there we go.